Hello and welcome to a special edition of This Is MediaCity. We're not in our normal studio. We have come to Dock10’s studios and they've let us into HQ2, which is the second biggest studio on the lot. Let's have a look and see. So, coming in here, you see the studio setup all over there, and that's because we are ready to welcome Rich Wormwell, who is the Head of Innovation at Dock10, and we'll be speaking about all the amazing things, the way they're pushing technology from match the day to working with dinosaurs, not real ones, and all sorts, lots more, all coming up in today's show. Well, usually I say welcome to This Is MediaCity, Rich, but you're welcoming me to Dock10 Studios today.
Well, thanks for being here, Steve. Yeah.
This is HQ2. This is not the biggest one, but it's pretty big nonetheless.
Yeah, so this is our sort of second largest studio. So HQ1 just next door is the largest. It's 12,500 square feet.
Now, I won't talk to you about studios and get all the facts and figures out of you because that's not your job. You're Head of Production Innovation, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
I'm going to ask you a bit more about that first, but we always start our This Is MediaCity podcast with some unknown questions that you can pick yourself so we can kind of delve deeper into your psyche.
Oh, wow.
They could be about anything. Hopefully something relevant.
I'll take my glasses off to read. Favourite lunchtime hangout in Media City? Well, I normally work through my lunch. So I'm
the office.
The office is, yeah, I sit at my desk. In all honesty, I'd sort of classic co-op meal deal and eat at my desk. It's probably not the best way to spend my lunch break. Although when the weather's nice, it's nice to sit out on the grass at the front and enjoy a bit of sunshine.
Fab, I'll take that from you.
Oh, I've got three. No, I've got... favourite film? So I always have this sort of... So my favourite director is Paul Thomas Anderson.
Okay.
And I always have this sort of internal debate with myself whether I prefer Magnolia or Punch Drunk Love, but I normally go with Punch Drunk Love.
Any reason why?
I just really like character films, so I like to sort of be really invested in the people that are in it, and that's a sort of, I don't know, it resonates a little bit. It reminds me of my own family a little bit, and the characters in it. I'm not a massive Adam Sandler fan, but I think he does a really strong performance in that film.
Fab, don't worry, we're going to talk about the day job now. This is where
That's a good question.
Head of Production Innovation at Dock10. In an elevator pitch kind of style, what does that actually mean?
So, really, it's a sort of role that. So I joined Dock10 as a studio manager. So I've come from a multi-camera directing background. So I've been in TV for about 25 years, and I joined Dock10 sort of at the start of when Dock10 and Media City were opening in 2012. As a studio manager, so I was running productions that were coming in, but I saw that there was an opportunity sort of not to compete with what the CTO does, but to look at more specifically at the innovations that the studios need to evolve to make sure that we stay relevant for our client base and for the audiences. So I've been in this role for about 8 years really, but it's been primarily sort of looking at sort of virtual production techniques and that sort of area. But really the sort of three key things that I think about is what gives our clients a competitive advantage in terms of the creative output of their programs. How do we make that more cost effective for them? And how do we make that more ecologically safe or sound? So they're the three big pillars that I sort of think about. And then really there's been I'm sure you and the audience will know better than most, that the market's not the most buoyant at the moment.
No.
So how do we lean into technology to help make sure that productions come here? We've got huge spaces like this, but this could be anywhere. The reason that we can get people to come here is because this big sandbox is full of the best toys. So if we bring innovation in and technologies and cool stuff, then people are more likely to come and make productions here with us at Dock10. So I get involved in all sorts of projects, and whether that's in virtual production or whether that's in AI or whether that's in looking at new camera formats or codecs or how we link studios in with post. I mean, it's a real sort of mixed bag of work really.
So
no 2 days are the same.
I was going to say, because I mean, your job won't have existed when you were coming through, because your traditional television background. How you've kind of you're still pushing Dock10 further and further down the innovation. You've shown me some of the toys you've been playing at. How far do you think you can push?
Well, it's a slow process, isn't it? It's like watching your children grow up. You don't actually see it happen, but and then all of a sudden you look back at what you've done and where it's moved. So I don't think it ever stops. There's that sort of old Google mantra, isn't it, about try a lot, fail fast, and then you get the odd thing that works and goes on. So virtual production was definitely that thing. We were really early adopters.
Because that was kind of a match the day kind of era, was it?
Match of the day, yeah. So I'd been part of. So I used to be a staff director at ITN, and we'd put a virtual studio in there in about 2000.
In Grayson Road
in London, yeah. So I was part of the team that sort of launched that virtual set for ITN. But at the time, it was innovative. But the processing power wasn't there. You could see that the graphics engines weren't capable of delivering in real time. And the massive game changer has been Unreal Engine. So when that first started sort of leaning outside of games and looking for other, that as a business, they were looking for other commercial opportunities, I suppose. And it was a conversation I had with a chap called John Murphy, who's the creative director over at BBC Sport, about the vision for Match of the Day over the next 10 years. I think we've been doing it for about 6 or 7 years at the time on a hard set. We were looking at LED volumes, and we were looking at
those are the screens everywhere.
The screens curve round, and obviously there's a budget constraint with the BBC, and what we have to do within Dock10 in terms of our turnaround facilities. So we went to all the big trade shows and looked at what was coming out, and it was just around that same time that Unreal was starting to look into real-time graphics for broadcast and film. So yeah, that was 2017, I guess, and then we spent about a year looking at the technologies, and then launched Match of the Day from a virtual set in 2018.
Because the Match of the Day set was incredible, isn't it?
I'm sure lots of people have seen it.
If you Google it, YouTube it, after you've watched this, it's kind of an island in the middle with the seats and the monitors, and then it's green all the way around, apart from the back. But because of your clever technology, even the camera behind the presenters fills in where all the cameras are, so you don't realise it's there. It that kind of technology, it kind of mind-blowing, really.
It sort of is, and I guess because I've worked with it for 25 years, it doesn't really, I sort of get it a lot clearer. But it is when you sort of take a step back and sort of think about actually what's happening, in the hood of that technology to make that stuff work. It's really amazing, and you also the thing that we is sort of the forefront of that is that we're running that across 5 individual camera channels every sort of match day weekend for the sports season and Champions League as well. So
and live,
20 hours a week or so live multi-camera from a virtual set. So it's a pretty impressive sort of feat of engineering, and it's the team here at Dock10. I'm arguably the face of it, but there's a lot cleverer people than me actually making this thing work.
I remember someone telling me that they got the Unreal Engine. I think it was a Dock10. You got the Unreal Engine thing set out, and it had a stadium in it, and then they'd ended up in a changing room somehow in the virtual set because they had to move where the centre spot of the pitch was, because the models are so enormous and detailed.
The first set that we built for Match of the Day in the first year was a 66,000 seater stadium with every seat, and we could put a crowd in it or not, and sponsored hoardings and everything. So the set was massive, and we've gone bigger than that actually. We did a programme with Stephen Fry, sending Stephen back in time to sort of explore the sort of lands of the dinosaurs, and those sets were 36 miles in diameter. So
36 miles?
Miles, yeah. And Stephen could literally walk anywhere within that landscape and find different dinosaurs in different areas. So I think we built 7 different environments over sort of Jurassic and Triassic and Cretaceous and all the different periods of time. And each of those environments was like 30 odd miles in diameter. So it's, all of a sudden you're sort of going, well, even though this is a big studio, actually we're making the worlds even bigger for people to sort of play in.
He's walking to Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly. It's down Manchester Shipping Canal.
and I think that the fact that the Unreal Engine, because people, if you're not used to it from a TV point of view, you'll know it from gaming.
Yeah.
You can just keep on zooming, and the quality it just doesn't really degrade, does it? Because they're so used to gamers kind of trying to find out, oh, is that real down there? Or
yeah, and I think there's a difference in that. Obviously, if you play a game world, that Epic are probably most famously known for Fortnite. So that's their biggest hitting title. But that engine and the technology behind it is like any games engine. You know, you create these worlds, I don't know, something like Grand Theft Auto, where you can literally go anywhere and explore big cities and landscapes, and you know, it all looks good. So it's that sort of premise. I think the difference is that gamers are a bit more forgiving. In terms of some of the quality of the stuff that's happened in there, or frame rates. If you get a drop frame in a game, nobody really notices. If you get a drop frame in a broadcast space,
you're for the high jump.
Yeah. Somebody's phoning me up, so it's like, you know, it's not. There's a different level in terms of what gaming has to achieve at, in terms of fidelity and quality, as to what we're trying to aim at in terms of broadcast. I would put us more in line with architectural visualization, where you're looking to sell a massive bit of real estate and you want a super high look detailed model of that environment so you can sell it. That's the level that we sort of try and aim at, is that architectural visualization sort of space, rather than gaming. We're probably somewhere in between, and you're always working on the sort of premises that the graphics renderer you want that to work at its optimum, but without it crashing, or without it dropping a frame, or without it causing noticeable issues on air. So there's always that fine balance, and we're always waiting for the next level of graphics card to be able to lean into the detail of the environment a bit more.
Because you've got Match of the Day. The other kind of high profile one, I imagine, is probably the Olympics that came out of here, and COVID kind of probably pushed that technology on a great deal, I would have thought. But
yeah.
That was another one, because you had levels and you had all sorts of exciting stuff going on with and so the processing power must have been massive to do things like that.
Yeah, that was a slightly different project for us.
I mean, originally, because pre-COVID, the plan to go to Tokyo and I think the Winter Olympics, wherever they were being held.
Yeah.
So COVID hits and then everything changes.
So literally that set was in a shipping container. When I say the set, all of the technology and the desks and the chairs, like some bits of the set, if you like. But all of that stuff was in a shipping container ready to go out to Tokyo. And then I think probably a month or 6 weeks before, it was obvious that COVID wasn't going anywhere and that they weren't going to be able to get out to Tokyo. So we brought it into the studio. So we stood up effectively an OB set in HQ3 next door. This room we're in now became a sort of media village, really. So there's a lot of technology in the studio. So it wasn't just about the virtual stuff that was happening on screen. It was around all of the technology and the infrastructure that would have been at the media village in Tokyo. So HQ10, or sometimes we refer to it as MPAS, was the commentary booth. I think we had something like 20 commentator spaces in there. So it was more of an engineering feat as a whole thing. And, you know, the virtual set was sort of the icing on the cake, if you like, at the end of it, all of the output. I
think to fully appreciate what goes into a TV show like that, you kind of did a really good job there of explaining, because to get something like the Olympics or multi-sport events, or even like a massive football tournament, there are so many sources coming in.
Yeah.
There's so many commentaries coming in. Then you've got the guys editing it and pushing it out, and then you've got the virtual studio as well. The technology, the power. I mean, I know this is what MediaCity Dock10 was built for, but even so, sometimes it makes you think, right, hold on, let's make sure we get this right.
It's challenging, but yeah, it was designed from the sort of ground up to be able to deliver these sort of projects. You know, we've done, like you say, the Olympics, World Cups, Euros, big sporting events for the BBC. Another one that we did as well was during COVID again, where the Gran Turismo World Championships, which was a global event. You know, normally they would sort of follow the Formula One circuit and go all over the globe. And that all came from here. So we had players, drivers, all over the globe, playing off game servers that were running in here, and then produced sort of pre-race, post-race analysis and like a sort of match of the day highlights program from here. So that was, I think, 8 or 9 events over the year, including an esports Olympic tournament. So that it's that being able to sort of get these data feeds or these, whether that's video, audio, or data or whatever it is, coming into the building and managing that process, and then being able to produce something that's a TV show at the end of it. That feels like almost like the last piece in the chain, really.
As well as all of the big things, the virtual studios is starting, I think, to get more of traction kind of in the, I don't want to use the word lower end, but you know what I mean, the ones with a lower budget. So you've got lots of quiz shows are using it a bit more, I think, as well. So is that where you think, where do you think virtual production is going to end up? Do you think it's going to start feeding more into everyday production?
We're definitely seeing more.
I was going to say some of the quiz shows. I think if you've just done one in Dock10’s.
Yeah,
I've just wrote about it on Prolific North, so I think it should be okay for 5.
Well, it's been out. So Sally Lindsay's Sally Does the Decades, which is the Channel 5 programme. So the first episode's gone out. We're back in studio in a couple of weeks' time, filming 2 more episodes of that. And it was really well received. I think it beat BBC and ITV in terms of audience viewers on the slot it was in, and it was the highest rated programme of Channel 5 that evening. So so
it's done well.
It's done really well.
And it was kind of a hybrid set, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's how it works best in terms of the virtual stuff, is this combination of some physical elements and some virtual elements. When we did Stephen Fry, because he was walking around this huge Jurassic landscape, it was all
miles again.
It was all virtual. There was no physical things in there apart from Stephen and the paleontologist.
And of course the dinosaurs.
And the dinosaurs were all real, obviously. But something like Sally Does the Decades or some of the other shows that we've done, it's match of the day again. There's a hard desk, there's some seats, there may be a monitor or 2, whatever, props, and then it's the skill of blending between the physical and the virtual seamlessly, and looking at the monitor and going, can you tell me which bit's virtual or not? That's always quite an interesting game to play with production when they come in and see it for the first time. So that sort of hybrid model, I think, is the thing that's going to be adopted by our clients. We're primarily light entertainment work. That's the sort of bread and butter, if you like, of the business, or the studio's business at least. If we can, like going back to the sort of 3 points, if we can give them a creative advantage and we can make it more affordable and we can have some environmental cost savings. So, if you build a rostrum or a platform for the action of the game show or the panel show or quiz show, whatever it is, to take place, but all of the stuff that sits around it can look amazing and huge and full of lighting that you wouldn't be able to afford to hire in, but it's done digitally in advance of production turning up, all of a sudden you've got a huge cost saving in terms of not just the stuff that you'd be building, but transportation, storing, rigging, de-rigging, all of the costs that sit around it. You're not manufacturing bits of things out of steel and wood. I feel like we are probably taking a larger slice of the pie in terms of the commercials, because you're not taking stuff out to set builders for things to get built, but we're doing that digitally instead. So we're sort of moving the money around, but it's more of the pie for us, if you like. And then obviously that ecological saving of not running so many lights or not having so much power on in the room and not having to pay for transportation back and forth from things. And then Sally Does the Decades is a good example. That came in and did one show, and then it's gone off site for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and then it's going to come back in again. Now for us, that's a file on a USB drive that we just plug into the computer and turn it on. If that was a full physical set, it would have all had to have been de-rigged, taken off set, stored, paid for storage for 6 weeks, brought back in, been re-rigged. That's all cost and all inconvenience for the production, really. And the Channel 5 budget, that programme wouldn't have got made had it not been able to bring it in on budget. So it's enabled programme making to continue in these tough times.
I was going to say, because you assume, when we talk about all these amazing sets and everything else, that it's going to be, oh my God, it's Hollywood budgets here, virtual studios. But I don't think it is it?
No, and I don't think we've got a good sort of comparison as to whether it's more cost effective or not. I mean, arguably I would say it is. But we only deal with the studio's portion, so we don't always see the full production budgets. But we did a pilot. Unfortunately, it didn't get commissioned, but it was a pilot for ITV, a sort of new dating show format. And they had, it was in this studio actually, but they had a pretty much a 360-degree wraparound LED video wall that was done digitally. Now, had they have brought that in physically...
So the LED wall didn't exist, but it existed
in the virtual
world. Virtual world, right, okay.
But if they'd have paid, well, they wouldn't have been able.
No.
I mean, that's sort of Saturday night, high-end Saturday night. But for a pilot, you would have never been able to do it. And so I think that look. I think what we're seeing in the industry really is that there's still the budgets there for the big Saturday night shows, and there's the commissioning appetite for it, if you like, and equally for the sort of daytime quiz game show sort of stuff. But that middle ground, that sort of 5 till sort of 7 o'clock slot, or shoulder primer sometimes it's referred to, that's not being commissioned anymore. The commissioners want things that look like Saturday night, but they want to pay daytime. So by being able to put virtual LED onto a virtual set and make it look Saturday night for the cost of a daytime is where we're seeing traction.
Oh, that's interesting. Space. The other thing you mentioned just in the previous answer as well, and it doesn't automatically spring to mind when you're thinking like virtual sets, you're thinking sets, but actually you are thinking you can build a lighting rig. So and that's obviously where the environmental savings come in, because you don't have to turn all of these kind of things on. But you can physically see, you can switch a light on that doesn't exist, and it makes an impact in real life on a virtual studio. Think about that for a moment. and it casts shadows.
I think what we've done as well, you sort of think. So one of the problems that we've always had is that chroma key technology. So we're shooting against green screen, and we're taking a cut out of anything physical and effectively pasting a virtual image into that backdrop. If we put a virtual light into that scene, how does that interact with things? We'll probably come on to this in the research stuff in a minute. But but really what we wanted to find was solutions that meant that the teams that work upstairs in the galleries, the sort of lighting directors and the console operators and the camera guys or girls, that all of those people want to come in and use the tools that they've been used to using for decades. So it's really important that when we start to look at virtual production is how do we make sure that when the console operator comes in and fades a light up, it's the same set of tools and the same methodology for doing virtual as it is for doing real. So we've developed a system called Virtual DMX. So DMX is a lighting protocol. It's basically says RGB levels or intensity, or if it's a moving light, the direction that light will be facing. But we've got that same set of data protocols in our virtual world now. So a console operator can come up, turn a fader on, and it will put the lights in the room on and put the lights in the virtual set on at the same time. And you can program them in the same way. So if you've got your big millionaire, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire sort of lighting drop at the pivotal stages, that happens in the virtual and at the physical at the same time. And it's all operated by one person on that same interface that they've been using for however long they've been in the job. So it's that seamless integration of the technology and making it really accessible, and so that you don't get people thinking, oh, well, we're going to need more people to operate, or we're going to have some specialist skills to run this stuff. It's like, no, you just need the people that you've always worked with and you've got the relationships with and that you trust to deliver the programs. We're just giving them an advanced set of tools to be able to be more creative. So that that virtual and physical sort of joining up again, it's like the hybrid sets. Blurring the lines between what's real and what's virtual is like the key to it all. I think.
So you may have watched the program thinking, oh, that's a virtual set, because some of them they obviously are. But you may have watched something which just has like a little twinkling of virtual over the top of it, which you don't. Oh, really?
Really? Yeah, exactly. And I think the way that the sort of lighting for studios in the physical world has moved in terms of sort of LED ribbons and the way that the sets are dressed and hypnotizers and video walls and all those sort of things, it's all starting to look a little bit CG in any case.
Yeah.
Even the real world stuff looks a bit graphic. So, sort of leans into our favour a little bit in terms of it's easy for us to replicate that world.
I'm biting my tongue because I'm deliberately stopping asking myself, because I remember doing After Effects when 2D in a 3D space and putting a light on, and obviously it just sees like a thin sheet of paper
it's like
and ruins all the shadows, and somehow you get around that as well. But I don't really want to go down that technical rabbit hole, because we'll be here for another hour talking about that, won't we? But you're also pushing innovation further, because you're getting more money, and I think from government sources and things like that to innovation fund and that kind of thing.
The first one that we did through the government's industrial strategy, there was a program called Audience of the Future, and it was literally looking at where the audience is going and how are they consuming content. And we worked, ESL with the lead organisation on that. So ESL, I'm sure some of the viewers will know, are a big esports company, the world's largest esports entertainment company. So they were the lead, and they were really interested in how their audiences are consuming content. University of York were the academic partner, and we came in as a virtual studio provider. There were also another 4 or 5 other companies in that. It was quite a big project. It was sort of £7.5 million worth over 2 years. But it really looking at how we can use AI and to drive narratives within esports, and also looking at touch points, whether that's virtual production or Twitch integrations or VR headsets or 360 experiences at the arenas. So lots of different touch points and different technologies, but pulling from one central resource, which was this AI supercomputer that York had developed. So it gave us a real understanding of that esports market, and that's what led us to winning the Gran Turismo championships, really, because of that understanding of the market, and some new technologies that we developed within that project that we could take through to commercial operation. So they're really interested, and we're really fortunate that the government and the industrial strategy sort of support these things.
Now, one of the other innovations you've done, I think we can show some video of it now.
Yeah.
Tell us what is happening here.
So one of the challenges that we had was making green screen convincing. So this came out of Stephen Fry's Dinosaurs. We wanted him to walk through a forest with dappled lighting through the trees. So we faked it effectively with some practical lights in the studio and some clever tricks within the Unreal Engine. But we wanted to find a way of making that possible in real time, looking at how we could use generative AI to fake lighting, if you like.
And this has just been you've just announced this to the public, haven't you?
We have. So we've got to the end of it was a 12-month project. So we were again working with the University of York as our academic partner, and this time we collaborated with a small indie production company called 2LE Media, which is based down in London, but really looking at how we could use, like I say, generative AI to enhance lighting in virtual production. Just put a bit of background on it. At Dock10 we've used green screen virtual production technology, so multi-camera shot against green. The other technique is LED volumes. We talked about it earlier briefly.
That's a Mandalorian.
The
kind of
Mandalorian
thing,
style thing. So big curved video walls. And really what that technology is, even though it uses a lot of the same stuff that we have here in terms of the Unreal Engine and the camera tracking solutions and the rendering and all those sort of things, really because that LED volume model is quite expensive. Well, really expensive.
Very expensive, yeah.
It tends to be used for sort of long-form drama or film, and primarily single camera. So you don't get the same sort of parallax of things moving around in 3D space.
There's a very stylistic way. You can tell it's volumetric, can't you?
I think you can start looking where once you know what it is you're looking for, you can sort of spot it.
Yeah.
There's a reason that The Mandalorian was all shot at dusk or dawn, because that's when the screens look the best. But what you do get on LED volume is you get some natural light coming off of the LED screens onto the talent. So the reason that basically the technique was developed, if you like, or first really deployed on The Mandalorian, because it is the guy wearing a like chrome shiny suit.
Yeah.
And
green screen with all of that would have been insane.
It wouldn't have been possible.
No.
Although you would have had to rotoscope every frame. So when I say rotoscope, I mean cut out every shot, every frame of every shot of The Mandalorian, and then fake the lighting post-production. So the post-budget would have been
because you'd
huge.
have had reflections of green screen all over him at different lighting.
It would have been horrendous. So it would have been possible, but really expensive.
Yeah. More expensive than an LED volumetric screen.
So the only way that they were going to get The Mandalorian made was to come up with this technique. And it's not really new. I mean, we've been putting plates or painted glass even. You go back in history, people were painting on glass to put foreground sort of AR images in front of film. So it's not really a new technique. It's just a deployment of technology to enable it. So they're the two main sort of versions, green screen virtual production or LED virtual production. Green screen, we've got real-time, live, multi-camera, really bad lighting. So we're getting lots of green bounce in the room. So quite often you'll see, if you've got a green floor, you'll have like people with sort of green under the chins, or
glasses are a nightmare.
Glasses or glasses of water or anything, things that are traditionally had.
Trophies.
Shiny silver trophies on Match of the Day are quite hard.
Yeah.
We had a Porsche in here once, actually, like a super shiny white Porsche and a green screen. That was quite hard. So, what we were trying to do is come up with a solution where we could get the same level of lighting that you get from an LED volume, but in multi-camera green screen. And that was the premise of the project. You will see from the clip, we've got some way to achieving that. It's a funded R&D project. We're now sort of putting that out to market, if you like, in terms of looking for some additional funding to get that to a production ready level. But I think that's got the real opportunity of sort of democratizing the market space. So, putting a green cloth up and shooting multi-camera as compared to building a 50 metre by 7 metre tall video wall, and the complications around that means that we're going to open up that virtual market to people that want to film location-based content in studio. So we can still get that, whole golden hour all day long.
Yeah.
And hopefully get the nice lighting. So it's an interesting time. But if there's anybody out there that's got about £5 million and want to invest for the next 2 years,
now's the time.
Now's the time, yeah. Tap Steve up for the details.
I know your background is more is traditional broadcasting in a way. Is there a sense that we have all this technology and you've got all these toys to play with? Do we need now a next generation of producers and directors and creatives to come through and kind of really bed this technology down? Because it still feels like I don't know, we're playing with the toys at the moment. We haven't kind of made them all seamless on screen. And I'm not talking from a technology point of view. I'm more thinking as a producer, kind of how we can make it better.
Well, I think there's an audience as well, Steve, isn't it? I think that's the change, is that the consumption's changing. So the audiences are moving, and that's not just the younger audiences. If you look at, I talk about sort of broadcast, film, high-end TV on one side, and sort of digital technologies and immersive stuff on the other side. And this side you've got, traditional production sort of methodologies, but with declining audiences. And this gaming side and immersive side, you've got games that are no longer just for playing. They're more becoming social experiences. The hangouts, my kids come home having played in the playground, switch on Fortnite or Minecraft or whatever, put the headsets on and then carry on the playground. Yeah. It's a social immersive experience. Fortnite, I think, was quoted to me as being the world's largest fashion retailer. It sells more digital assets than Primark sell clothes. It's like, these spaces are no longer just playing spaces. And what you're increasingly seeing is people like Epic are putting on passive content within those platforms. So you'll see, Snoop Dogg doing a music performance on a Fortnite island as a watchable experience.
If you go back in our podcast, we had a girl called Noelle who's doing a Fortnite experience, who I think probably been working with you guys as well.
I know Noelle, yeah. So, that sort of model is where the audiences are, because the kids are hanging out in those spaces and they go, oh, Dr. Dre's got a gig on this other island, should we all hop over there and take part in that or experience that? So how do we look to make content that sits in that space, so that the games industries looking towards the broadcast and the film industry for how you do narrative storytelling sort of stuff, and we're looking to games for the audience. So it's like there's this middle ground where I think we talk about convergent media, that sort of cross-reality convergent media space that sort of sits between broadcast and games. And that I think that, to try and go back to your original question, Steve, sorry, I'm waffling on a bit, but that change is going to come with the audience.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see the producers and directors of the future sort of growing up with that consumption model, and that's what's going to influence how content's made in the future. I think the area that we sort of arguably lean towards is more theatre directing than TV directing, because you direct or theatre in the round.
Theatre in the round, so you've got it all,
that sort of approach. And it's then how, if you want to sort of think about content in that way, how does the technology have to work to be able to do that?
It's also theatre in the round when the whole audience and the actors are following you home.
Yeah.
Because they're all tweeting and
like
Instagramming,
and
TikTok and everything else. So
I've never had that happen to me, so I was staying beside of the camera.
That's the future. So I mean, I know the TV film, we're at a funny stage of our existence at the moment, but from what you're saying, actually there is quite a lot of excitement around the corner. We just kind of need the budgets to make it happen, don't we?
We need the budgets, and you sort of going to people, commissioners certainly in the broadcast space, and saying we want to do this crazy new thing that's going to be broadcast on a Fortnite island. It's too risky for them to put the investment into. I think let's just talk about the recent project that we've finished. Again, it's a government-backed research project, but it's looking at exactly that space. How do we create content that is able to be consumed across multiple platforms, ideally simultaneously in real time? Is that going to be possible, do you think? Yeah, for sure, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it might not be this year, but it's certainly going to happen. That you look at what Mark Zuckerberg's doing with Facebook, or with Meta, at least in the Meta headsets, and the way that the technology is stacked around being able to have photorealistic conversations with people in 3D in a VR headset. That it's not a product yet, but that is stuff that they're working on, and you find it online that that it looks really good. It's really convincing. As convincing as it is me sitting here chatting with you now.
Oh, I'm not very convincing.
And you're not very convincing. So, but it's like if it's happening in the research space, it's for sure going to be happening in the real world within the next 5 years or so. So, what we're trying to do is develop the tools and the techniques to be able to deliver content in that way. So, we had Harry Styles. This is a couple of years ago. Did a gig in HQ1 as a BBC special next door. Now, there's an audience in the room that are enjoying and experiencing that. We've got a load of broadcast cameras in the room that are filming it and putting that on a traditional platform. But if we'd had a digital version of Harry, and we were catching his performance volumetric at the same time, there's no reason that we couldn't be distributing that on a VR headset where you could stand on stage next to him and walk around him and experience it. So it's just that for us, it's another way of capturing and delivering content. So it's a different flavour, but it's really the essence of what we do. We've got studio cameras and lights, and we capture content and package it up and send it out the door. You've just got to think of it in a slightly different way. It's like that. We're not going to all of a sudden go from delivering content to BBC One on a Saturday night to sending everything off to Epic for them to put on Fortnite Island. But there's probably a middle ground where we want to do everything at the same time. Until we go, well, there's more benefit in doing that than there is that. Or that's where, we'll work to what the commissioners and the producers and their platforms that they're delivering to and the specs that they need to be adhering to. But what we need to do in terms of a facility is make sure that we're capable of leaning into the client's requests, or even advising the clients on the possibility of what's achievable.
So basically, kids, if parents and their kids are playing Fortnite at the moment, don't stop them. Go and learn more, and you could be working with him.
Nobody wants that.
but the future of television future of screen, is quite it has that crossover, and that is kind of an exciting space, and it's more exciting because it's here at Media City, and you're pushing the boundaries right from Salford.
Yes. Absolutely. And long may it continue.
And well, thank you ever so much for inviting us into your second biggest studio. Thank you very much. There's loads more podcasts online, so please log on to This Is Media City on your favourite podcast platforming app. You can also watch us on YouTube, so you can appreciate fully the space. This Is Media City is a 39 Pictures production on behalf of Media City and in partnership with the University of Salford, and all the team behind the cameras here are graduates of the University of Salford. We'll see you next week.
The production team are Meg Bond, Tegan Easton, Akila Hewitt and James Young.